Alright, welcome back. This lesson is going to be on inverse functions. It's 6-7. So everything has inverses and opposites, right? Multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. You have an amazing math teacher. There are some not so amazing math teachers out there. So inverse functions, first we're going to look at the notation. We know a function looks like this, right? F of x. So if we want to find the inverse of that, we would write it as f to the negative 1 power of x. And we just call this the inverse of function f. Alright, so that's a notation. Or if we have g of x, the inverse of that, just a notation, just writing it out, it would look like this. Alright, just the basic notation. So, finding the inverse is pretty easy. If we look here at a problem, we have f of x is equal to 2x minus 3, and we want to find the inverse of x, right? So to find the inverse, all we're going to do is switch the x's and the y's. So we know that f of x, we could rewrite this as just y equals 2x minus 3. Alright? So to find the inverse, all we do is switch the x's and the y's. Alright, what I mean by this is just put the x's where the y's are and the y's are where the x's are. So I'll write this out as x equals 2y minus 3. See how we just switched the x's and the y's? And then what I'm going to do is solve for y again. Alright? So right now it's solved for x, because I switched them. Before it was solved for y. We have y equals. But I just switched it, right? So now I'm going to solve for y again. And when I get that value, that'll be my inverse. So if I want to solve for this y right here, I need to get rid of this 2, and I need to get rid of this minus 3. The first one I'm going to get rid of is the minus 3, right? So let's add 3 to both sides. And we get x plus 3 is equal to 2y. Alright, so now, to get y all by itself, we need to divide by 2. And we get y is equal to x plus 2 over 3. Now I can write this a couple different ways. I can write it if y equals x plus 2 over 3, or y equals, that's a 1x, so we could say 1/3 x plus 2 over 3. So I can just split the 3 between the two. And this would be in my y equals mx plus b form, where m is the y-intercept, right? I'm sorry, m is the slope, so the slope of this line would be 1/3, and the y-intercept is 2/3. So let's see what the graphs look like of a function and their inverse. So I have y equals 2x minus 3. Let's graph that first in our calculator. So to do that, we can go to our graph in our calculator and put in 2x minus 3 and hit enter. That's what it looks like. It has a slope of 2. It's going up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, and the y-intercept is minus 3. Now, if I also graph the inverse, it is, let's see, 1/3 x. I'm making a fraction here. 1 over 3 x plus 2/3. Hit enter. The red one there is the inverse. So something special happens when we have inverses. If you can imagine a line, perfectly diagonal line going at like 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, all the way up diagonally and all the way down diagonally. It would be right in the center of those two lines at every point. You could fold these two things diagonally over each other and they would meet. I can't draw a, so let's see if I can do this. That won't let me. Alright, but imagine a diagonal line going perfectly in there. Actually, we could draw one in there. That would just be y equals x. So if I add another one in there, y is equal to x, we'll make a perfect diagonal line. It's going right in between those two functions. Alright? We can fold them over on top of each other. Alright, so moving on, let's look at another inverse. We'll save that. No. Alright. Let's look at the inverse of x squared minus 1. Alright, the inverse of x squared minus 1 is going to be f to the negative 1 power of x. So to do that, just like before, we're going to switch our x's and y's. Alright, so we're going to rewrite f of x as y, and then switch our x's and y's. So we get x equals y squared minus 1. And then the next step, just as before, we're going to solve for y now. Alright, so we add 1 to both sides. X plus 1 is equal to y squared. And then if we want y all by itself, we need to take the square root of both sides, right? Square root. That cancels out, and we get y is equal to the square root of x plus 1. There's a very important rule here that we have to remember, though. If we take the square root of something squared, we could have two possible answers. We could have a positive answer and a negative answer. Always remember, when we have squared, we're going to have two answers. One way or another, we're going to have two answers. So always look for two answers when we get that. So in this case, we'll have plus or minus the square root of x plus 1. And in the next lesson, you will learn what this graph looks like, the square root of x plus 1. I will see you in that lesson.